Hello everyone, Simon here from Higher Playing Music. I hope you are well. This fifth and final video, hurrah, you made it, all the way through on this PR one sheet series is all about making the PR one sheet, hurrah! The idea through steps 1 to 4 in those videos is all about trying to make sure that you've got a cognizant backstory, because that will help you understand exactly what you're going to put into this PR one sheet. Because before you get to this, you need to have already understood what you're releasing, when you're releasing it, who you're releasing it to as your target audience, because therefore you'll be targeting exactly where you're going to send this PR to. But also you'll be looking and being able to translate who you are, what you do, why someone should care, and where they can go for more information. All of that comes into this PR one sheet, and I'm now going to just transfer you over to my old PC so that you can see some of the layouts and some of the ideas in action. Okay, I've pulled together 2 very brief and rough around the edges examples of me pretending to release an EP at the start of May. I've done it in 2 different formats because both are viable and both are industry standard. The first one is a one sheet, a one page, one side of A4, and that's kind of what you would think a one sheet would be, but alas, you can have a 2-page version as well. And I generally would recommend this, especially if you want to include much more about yourself and it's not easy to shoehorn it into your most recent release. It depends on what you're really going for as to which one's probably best for you. What I would say though is that if you do go for a 2-pager, like as in a back-to-back, don't stop like a third of the way up the second page. Make it intentional, fill out the space with useful and interesting information about you, especially if you're doing this for blogging or for press, because this is all full of information that they can pull out and reword it into a format that would work for their press and blog posts that you can then repurpose. We'll have a look at the one sheet first, the single pager, and I'll call out specific things as we go through so that you understand why I've done it and some tips along the way. Now the first thing I'll say with this is that I've saved this as a PDF, and there's good reasons for that and there's bad reasons for that. Good, it means that the formatting stays the same no matter where you send it. The bad is that actually that's quite poor for accessibility. If someone's got screen readers, it can kind of throw you off. But it also means that any images that you've embedded into the PDF are stuck at that size. If you've got this as a Word document, or you're sending this as an electronic press kit where you've actually built it on your website and you give people a link to go and find all of the nitty-gritty details about you, you'd ideally want this photo to be a high resolution photo that you've just shrunk down to size, because what that means is that bloggers can right click and save as, and therefore be able to have access to a high resolution image of you immediately that they can lift up and place on their press for you. Of course, your title of your project needs to be the biggest thing emblazoned all over it, and I've included here a press embargo, and this is a really good way to try and help structure other people's content about you. If, say, you have given exclusivity rights for someone to share your music video or your latest single a day before everyone else, you can then put the press embargo in place for everyone to follow that, so that you automatically have your exclusivities honoured, but you can still canvass future press that then comes afterwards. For this specific layout, I've chosen to put the release date here underneath, mainly because the press embargo kind of already shouts about when you're going to be wanting to talk about this, and if I'm a small artist, the release date is actually less of an exciting piece of information. However, if you are on a record label that has an established brand or style, or has a following, no matter how cult, it's worthwhile saying what record label that you are being released upon, if you are on a label of course, here, because that adds gravitas to what you're doing. And if bloggers or press already know about this label, it automatically starts to align you into the fields of what they expect that label to provide. FFO stands for fans of, and I find this always works really nicely for if you're a completely new artist that's coming out and you want to start to align people in different genres or styles of music or motives and similar artists. Just depends on how you want to pitch it. With this, because, and I'll explain it as we go into the text, I'm talking about mixing together piano rock and game music themes. It makes sense for me to pull from quite disparate artists. So you've got the Final Fantasy element for the game music, Tori Amos because it's piano, My Brightest Diamond because it's cinematic. That's why I've kind of put that there. However, sometimes it's quite useful for you to use artists that are all kind of in the same genre if that's really where you're at. Don't go too left field is what I would suggest. Underneath, you've then got my tagline. Simon Smith releases emotional piano rock tribute to video game protagonist Yuna from Final Fantasy X or X. Now, that is my tagline because it pulls in who I am, the type of music that I do, emotional piano rock, but it's also got my unique spin and twist. So I don't know too many other people that would be busy pulling out original material around computer game characters, but that's what this project is all about. That's a really good understanding of knowing what your niche is. Remember all this back to episode 1, blah, 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 blah. That is what that pulls together. Underneath, you then start to give more reasons why and filling in the blanks as to explaining a little bit more about the style of music and the content of what it is. So, with an eternal sacrifice hanging over her, Yuna is the latest video game character that Simon Smith's piano-driven music tackles in his Video Game Chronicles series. That's important, Video Game Chronicles series, because you're alluding to the fact that this is part of a wider selection of music. So it's not just a drop in the ocean. There are other things that if people like this, they can go out and explore. And that's a good little nugget for people to understand when they're blogging about it, because they'll reference it. With each release, Simon places himself in the mind of a hero or villain from a popular game series and sets to work. With his affinity for piano rock, strong melodies and emotional hooks, each release places a new spin on a story that many gamers will already be familiar with. So let's break this down as well. So with each release, again, we're harking back to the fact that I've got music out there already. Heroes and villains of popular game series, that's going to appeal to niche cult communities and audiences. And then again, we're back here with affinity for piano rock, backing up the piano rock tribute up here. Emotions plus strong melodies, emotions. Those are my feeling words without being too specific. I could go, if I really wanted to make this stronger, to be much more specific, but I'll show that a little bit further on in the 2-pager because we're limited for space here. Perhaps I could switch out one of the emotions with a very specific emotion instead of just saying I'm emotional. That would be an improvement there. But the idea here and the way to add value is that each release places a new spin on a story that many gamers will already be familiar with. That's my added value. The next paragraph is all about the what makes me tick, why I'm doing it, and why the listeners should care, I guess, is what this paragraph is all about. And I've done it as a quote. Yuna is totally at peace with her decision to sacrifice herself to save the world. Immediately, peril, drama, intrigue, story. And none of it mine. Thanks, Final Fantasy X. I wanted to portray exactly how it must feel knowing that every time you visit somewhere or do something on your journey, that you'd knowingly be doing it for the last time. Interesting introduction to the concept of what the music and the intent behind the music is. Says, UK-based Simon. I don't know what is wrong with our world, but we're obsessed with where people are based. So always stick in your location somewhere. And people seem to like drive affinities to like other British artists would be like, oh yeah, another UK artist. It never fails, especially with American music. America is so geographically unified in a way that they will stick up for everywhere else in America, but also rage wars against each other in a kind of wink wink nudge nudge way. Americans love geography. Go for it, stick it in. Anyway, back to me. I wanted to pose a simple question. Ooh, intrigue. If you knew that every choice you made this week would be your last, would you treat things differently? Interesting. Makes the blogger or the press person think, also conditions the listener to think, because that is a pullable quote that press would use. And then when that listener then reads that and then comes on to the music, they're already conditioned to think, okay, I'm coming in with this slant in my mind. I've already got a backstory to the music. I'm invested. The music itself is largely bittersweet. Again, we're painting the picture of the song. But on lead single, The Little Things, he recounts the little things that we all take for granted on a daily basis. Again, relatable content, trying to gain rapport. With rapturous drums, a booming string quartet, and sanguine melodies, both gamers and fans of alt pop will feel revitalised and empowered in the face of hopelessness. Now that is quite lyrical, but that's my personal style of writing. That may not necessarily work for you, but descriptors in exactly what your music is going to entail is vital for giving a nudge towards what you want to draw bloggers and listeners and press and radio DJs out to, because they'll be sitting there thinking, I need to place radio specifically might be, I need to place a big boomer next to some ballads. Oh look, I'm conditioned. Then the final one here is around the call to action. Eunice Journey is now available to pre-order on Bandcamp. Link immediately, giving immediate access to the single The Little Things. We've not bothered with Spotify or anything like that because that's not what we're chasing here. We're chasing pre-orders because that is what our decision is, and that is what our value proposition is. We're trading in sales here rather than plays. That's again very individualistic. Then at the bottom here, I just want to explain some of this. So stream the single, cleared for publication. That is crucial to have on your press releases. No matter what you do, 1 page, 2 page, it needs to be there because it gives everyone an idea of exactly whether or not they can then socialize that link. And the reason why that's a problem is that quite often you'll need to upload either a YouTube video as private or unlisted. SoundCloud is the same. Do not put a Spotify link on there. Not everyone is on Spotify, and particularly when you're speaking with press, there is a negative connotation with Spotify because it doesn't support the music industry. And so some people, and myself is included, I refuse to trade on Spotify for anything whatsoever, and I do not run it. So if you send me a Spotify link, as it says so on my website, your whole pitch goes in the bin because I can't find your music. So just make sure that whatever you are linking to is available for everyone and you've put no barrier there. If you're looking for reviews, then you can put a link to a stream or a download. Quite often that ends up being in a Google Drive for a lot of people, and that's perfectly fine because you might need a link to additional photos. I've only put one up there and that's not going to be good enough if I've sent this out as a PDF. So additional photos, you could also call that additional high-res photos or download high-res photos with a link here. The next thing I've done is put out focus tracks. Now this is specific normally for an LP over an EP, but it's worthwhile that if you think, oh, do you know what, my stuff's a bit arty and I'm going to need to find my strongest foot forward here to try and get a foot in the door. Highlight your focus tracks that you think will be the best for radio play, the best single that you've got going on, or the emotional pull for your release. Now, those focus tracks might not necessarily be the same. I would recommend not putting more than 3 focus tracks on there if you're releasing an album, 2 for an EP, preferably 1 if you can get away with it for an EP, if it's 4 tracks or less, in which case you're basically doing a single, if it's less than that. So really key though, because if someone's pressed for time, that's what they're going to first. So put your best foot forward. Also worthwhile noting is your preferred purchase and stream link. That is crucial because if you have your release, say, on Bandcamp, that then drives traffic there so that you can then get a better deal from your sales. If you wanted to do it as a pre-save, then you've got your Spotify links or something like that. But the idea here, and you could even do it as one of those link trees where you've got all the different options there, is that you take control of where you want your press to send people so that you control that user journey. Hope that makes sense. At the bottom here, I've then put, because we was tight on space, Simon Smith, and then my other socials. So website comes first because website is my home, Bandcamp for sales, Twitter for conversation, YouTube for my music videos and vlogs, Instagram is my last effort because that's the time that I spend less on there. I might be on Facebook, I might be on TikTok, but if I'm not actively posting and it's not part of my everyday conversation, that's not what I want to put forward, so therefore they get removed. And if I didn't have any of these or all of these sorted out and running content that matters, that drives everyone to that website or Bandcamp to make that sale, they come off. So that's what the one pager looks like. The two pager is just a very slightly different layout, just so that you get to see different options. And this is quite a common way how emails come through to me. So it will have a larger picture up on top, and then it will come out with name and title. And for this one specifically, we're doing a release date on here. But what we've done is we've given directional actions for the press release. So share the Little Things single. Immediately we're telling them that this is available and you can go out for it. Yuna's Journey is available to pre-order. Again, we've given that pre-order link, and it's about being upfront and directional to tell people what they need to do. What we've also got here is release date, on record label if assisted. I also included here genre, because this can be very helpful too, to kind of categorize things, especially if you're doing a larger publication that may have different writers to cover different genres of music, because then that helps them kind of field off requests as they come in to the right people. Again, for fans of, and I've stuck the same stuff here. But what you'll start to see is that I've then included all of that stuff that we went through in episode 1, which was dealing with that about me. And this is where you can go into much more detail. Also notice this is a mobile photo that is what you could call a headliner or a banner photo. But look here, so I've got hailing from the UK, Essex, UK, again, locations, we love it. Simon's been writing piano-based alt-rock since 2002. Okay, he's been around for a while. Been around the block. After laying his personal demons to rest early in his music career, oh yes, juicy, but not saying too much more. And that's because our focus has changed. Simon now merges his love of gaming and music, that should say by writing about gaming worlds or characters that have captured his imagination. So again, this is about explaining the world of which I live in musically and artistically. Embarking on his Video Game Chronicle series, Simon has collaborated with the XYZ String Quartet. Again, always very handy, and again it starts to pull out individual things to tell different perspectives from Zelda, Final Fantasy, Horizon Zero Dawn, Life is Strange, and even Mario. Wonder what that could be like if I'm busy doing blood and guts piano pop everywhere. Is it Peach being very upset in a castle? They just don't love me. Anyway, key to Simon's sound is his use of acoustic instruments like piano, zithers and tribal drums alongside electronic MIDI synths that usually create the game music from the games that inspire him. This is all key because it starts to create the mental picture of the sound, but it's also highly unique to this artist. And it's one of those things that leads you automatically, as someone that deals with press, that's a question that if I was to ask you for an interview, I can dive right into that. I can dive right into favourite games, your Video Games Chronicles series. What were your personal demons that you've laid to rest, and how has that changed you now? Again, it's all about painting that picture of your journey, your hero's journey, from starting out artist to where you are now and where you want to go. Here we go. Simon uses this as a bridge between the fictional world and reality, shining a light on complex and powerful characters with fluidity and purpose. Again, just adding more meat to that bones. Then it starts to come down to the adding value. Simon also writes character studies and diaries for each release, allowing you to explore even more about the characters' motives and ambitions. Excellent. Going beyond just the music. This extra insight is valuable for gamers and sparks many fan discussions. Ooh, does that mean it's controversial? Simon will be on a character study panel at the VGM Fest in October 2021. Always handy if you've got something coming up to stick it in on the end there, especially if it's related. One of the other things that I could have done on here, and I did have the room actually, is that I could have mentioned that those character studies and diaries were available on my website, because again, that's generating traffic. Again, stream a single, code for publication, download link, additional photos, focus track, preferred link. And then what I've done here, because we've got the room and I was finishing up early, is separate out the fact that I want my website to be loud and clear. So that is the home, that is where I'm driving traffic to, and that's because I've got all of this content that constantly comes round full cycle. It's that repetition of content that will keep people coming back, transitioning from being interested to being a fan, to being a fan that cares if the content resonates with them. Simon can also be found on Ding 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 Ding. These are less important because this is my home. Order these in order of preference. And then, because we've got a label here, we've got room for the label stuff on there too. One last thing that I just want to talk about with these one-pager kits is that whenever you email these out, it depends on how you send it. If you've got to go through a web form, it kind of makes this point a bit annoying because you can't do it. But if you're able to get specific email addresses for inboxes, title your email in one of these types of things. So you've got Simon Smith, Yuna's Journey is an emotional piano rock tribute to Final Fantasy X. And then maybe in brackets, piano pop or piano rock. Something like that, because it's immediately, before you've even opened the email, it starts to make people think, oh, that's interesting, that's unique, that's different. And it gets your name in there with the genre, so if you've got multiple writers, they can farm it off to different people. But it also means that you kind of jump the queue, because if people just put, please take a look at my new release, please. And quite often, a lot of people just type the title as hi or new music. There's no inspiration there. And so I will get to those submissions, but if someone is jumping out with a clear indicator of the type of music that they've got, and that already gels with me because you've done your research and you've sent it to the right publications, you'll jump the queue. And that's a really good way to then have that up front, and then you immediately establish it with this. I hope that's been informative for you and you've been able to create your very own PR1 sheet. If you've run into problems or if you require any more assistance, I do offer that as a paid service over on higherplayingmusic.com, alongside some other PR support around short or long-term campaigns. Regardless though, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you use Higher Playing Music for discovering some of your future music crushes. Any comments or questions on future topics, drop them down below, but until then, have a rest, you deserve it.